You're very welcome to another episode of the Scaling Your Business podcast. For this episode, I am joined by Mark Canavan, the co-founder and CEO of Greenheart CBD. Mark, you're very welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rian, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm delighted to have you. Typical fashion of the show is we start with spending the first 5-6 minutes getting to know the guests, and then we jump into the podcast. No different with you. I know that you spent some time growing up in Curragh. I don't know if you grew up there your entire life, but what was life like growing up in Curragh?
It's good. Yeah, in Curragh. So we moved out to Curragh from Dublin when I was 11. We moved out from the big smoke into a nice little village, country life. My dad had a wholesale sandwich business at the time and a couple of shops around Dublin, just convenience stores. He then built a shop on the land beside the house. So with that shop, then he built a catering facility to run the wholesale sandwich business from. So from that age, I got heavily involved in the businesses, and I was working in the shop. And we then got into outdoor catering. My dad's a chef by trade, so we were doing outdoor events. Had mobile catering units where we used to go to the concerts and festivals and things. So I was always very entrepreneurial from such a young age, and that's the way in which I was brought up. My mom is also an entrepreneur, and she's a beautician. She had her own salon in Dublin and had quite a high-profile clientele, which was great because that actually opened a lot of doors for me then further in my career as I developed good relationships, and they'd seen my sort of entrepreneurial drive from such a young age. It was inspirational to them. To see such a young guy come up and really get involved so heavily in the business at such a young age. So yeah, I went to school in Curragh, small. I think there was 5 people in my class. We had 4 classes in the classroom. There was second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, all in the same room. So it was an interesting time for the teacher. But I got through it. I went to secondary school then in Dunshaughlin, and then I went on to study entrepreneurship in Maynooth University then, which I came out with an honors degree. Yeah, that was my early years into my educational side of things. I will go back to go do a master's and further my education, but at the moment I'm tied up heavily with Greenheart CBD and the expansion and evolution of this company.
And I'm looking forward to getting into the weeds on that topic. For anyone who doesn't know Curragh, because it's not the largest city in the world, it's about 25 minutes from Dublin Airport. I'd be correct with that.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. Influence and impact is a question I like to ask. And seeing as both your parents were very entrepreneurial, people can usually pinpoint a handful of people that had a massive impact or influence on their early years that helped them become the person they were today. Teachers, acquaintances, parents, relatives, close friends. Anyone spring to mind for you?
My father was the main influence. My grandfather, on my mother's side, Jerry Glynn, was an entrepreneur as well. He had a drapery business, and he supplied the likes of Dunnes Stores, a lot of hotels around the country. And like he started that company, I think it was in the 50s, and he used to import the stocks from Spain. So that was a huge thing back then to be traveling overseas and bringing product back in. So he had a warehouse, and in my younger days, I used to spend Saturdays with my granny and granddad because my parents were both working. So I used to often be brought out to the warehouse, and I'd be loading and unloading vans, and again, all the fun donkey work that a child should be doing to get them trained up in the whole entrepreneurial side of things, get them to see that side of the world. So yeah, my grandfather and my dad would be the biggest influences from an entrepreneurial perspective.
Nice answer. I like that. A lot of people have pointed to their grandparents and particularly their parents of having a positive influence. Nice to know that yours are included in that list too. I'd like to, actually, I was going to ask another question. I'll go back to the question I was originally going to ask, and it's, what did you want to be when you grew up and why?
Businessman. I always wanted to be someone to be at the head driving a company. I've always looked up to my father as he drove different companies and he got me involved, and I was always his right hand man. And it was really interesting that the royal we did everything. That was me, but he was the one that got the job and distributed the job to me and got me to do them. But I always wanted to be that person. to be distributing the positions. But I would never the other person aside from my father that I've worked for is Patrick Swan, who owns the pub across the road in Curraha. Then I went
great place.
Yeah. Then I went on to do the catering for them, which was my own venture. My first entrepreneurial business, I don't know if you would quite call it a business, but kind of lift that I did on my own was I used to Perry Crisps or Hunky Dory's in Largo. It's down the road from us in Curraha. I used to go down and get black sacks full of crisps because you used to get a black sack for $5, and I used to fill my bag up going into school and stand beside the vending machine and sell 2 bags for the price that the vending machine was charging. That was my first little venture. I was also heavily interested in reptiles and snakes and lizards. So I started breeding them and I sold them back to the pet shops then. At one stage, I had a collection of over 70 reptiles. And I had them all in my bedroom, which became a bed and vivariums. So then I got a porta cabin, which we put down in the yard at the back of the shop. And I kitted that out as a full reptile house. And I was in talks then briefly before Tato Park opened with Raymond Coyle, who was the owner of Largo Foods. He's now sold the majority stake, but he's the majority shareholder of Tato Park. And we were in talks about putting a reptile house in. Unfortunately, he didn't go ahead with that idea, but he was very impressed when he came up to see the whole setup. But it was just a cost issue on his side. He just, with the heating elements and everything that was needed and the specialty care. So, but look, I made a few bob out of it. I had a really interesting time. I learned an awful lot in breeding and creating environments and that whole thing, which is essentially what you're doing in a business. Yeah. It's just, it's the same principles.
Wow. It's always interesting to see some of the moves future entrepreneurs make when they're young. Yeah, the first thought that went through my head was, I know there's a zoo in Taylor Park, but you can essentially claim ownership of the first zoo in that region.
Yeah. I just didn't charge people in, which was my only downfall.
Yeah, well, look, there's reasons why not every venture succeeds. You learn from them. What's your dad's name, by the way?
Noel Canavan.
Big shout out to Noel Canavan for the impact he had on you.
Cheers.
But let's rewind to 2006. You spent 3 years working with Patrick Swan as a barman in Swans. It's the hospitality industry. And the question I have for you there is, it's probably a 2-part question. One would be, what lessons did you learn from your time there? Did you improve any skills, communication, building rapport? And the second part of that is, do you think everyone should do a stint in hospitality before they go into the big bad world, you may say? And if so, why?
100%. Okay. Well, firstly, the skill sets that I've learned through that space. I was also working with my father doing the catering. So it's very, very similar sort of working environment. It's all about customer service. I really, really enjoyed it. I think it is very important and beneficial for anyone at all, no matter what industry they go into, as a young teenager or anything, to be working in that sort of environment. It's high pace. It gives you a good work ethic, and you have to wear the smile on your face. The customer is always right, but you have to enjoy that time too. So it's hard work. Again, from the work ethic perspective, it really gives you that drive and to see what it's like from that environment. And serving people, it's very important that you encourage people and allow people to have a good time, and enjoy it while you're the one facilitating that. But sure. I think it was a huge benefit to me anyway.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. I've done a couple of stints in hospitality. My latest one was probably when I returned from Australia in 2015. I worked for 6 months in Molly's in Ashburn, Molly's bar.
John
Bodrick. You were the GM at, I might pronounce this wrong, Halo Munchies. 2-part question on that is, what was that business? And then was there 1 or 2 things that you felt that you did well that contributed to the longevity or the success of that venture?
100%. Yeah. Okay. So that business Halo Munchies is an honesty box based business. So it's based on the honorary system. So we were partnering with a Childline and the ISPCC. So the idea is it's a confectionery product. Confectionery products are sold through the company. So cans of crisps, cans, crisps, and bars of chocolate. And it's done through a cardboard box with a coin box on the front, and then it's left in the likes of banks, offices, warehouses, any business at all. So basically, it's €1 per product, which ended up having to be hiked to 120 with inflation. And you allow the customer to pay what they feel they should pay, but the association with the charity then is an extra encouragement for them to pay for the product. Generally speaking, we had an 8% pilferage rate, which is very manageable if you consider the cost of the cardboard box against vending machines and the likes. Now, in the later years of Halo, we did go into vending, and then at the end, well, when we stopped the expansion due to COVID, we have had and still have 200 vending machines on sites. Wow. At our peak, we had 4,500 customers across the country. We started this company. It was part of a takeover. My father was in business with another guy, and it was a company called Lunchpack. We supplied the wholesale sandwiches and did all the distribution through canteens and schools. That company went under, and unfortunately there was quite a hefty bill owed to ourselves for the service we had provided. As part the and Retail Foods was a company that had one employee. It was the same business model, although it was working with a Chernobyl charity, and it was very low spec on the printed boxes and everything, the product range, everything that they were using. It was just a bit half-arsedy. So when we took over, we kind of gave it that uplift. We took over, and I became general manager while I was in the second year of college. And we had one employee and myself. So I was working full-time while in college full-time. So it was very busy and interesting years. We built that up. In the summer then of my transition from second to third year, we took on our third employee. That allowed me to come off the road and just to manage it from a admin perspective. Then took on an additional salesperson, built it up. So I had 10 employees working from our base in Curraha, servicing the Leinster area. That was our reach as far as we could go when it came to distribution. So I moved down to Cork then, once I finished college, moved down for I think it was a 4-month period, and built another depot down there. So we had 3 staff then working from Cork, and did the same then in the Galway region. So I peaked out at 16 staff across the country, 4,500 customers with honesty boxes, 200 vending machines. And then I kind of maxed out of what I could do within the Eurozone on our island. And it's cash business, it's coin handling. There's a lot of management involved in it. We were looking at expanding into the UK, but it's going to be very difficult to manage this overseas. So we started to spread into the north, and it was the culture was different. The model didn't fit as well. So we sort of just plateaued in growth then from that. So my current business partner, Paul Walsh, had come to me in 2017 when I was building Halo, and tried to get me involved in cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, and he was big into the blockchain. I turned the offer down. It wasn't something that suited me very well at all, and it wasn't something that I understood. So I did a bit of research into it, and I was interested, but I didn't have the understanding to create a business inside that space at that time. But then he came to me late 2018 and with the idea of Greenheart CBD. And I said, well, that's a goer, let's do it. So the two of us set up a company, 50-50 partnership. And that was the start of the journey that I'm on now. So wow. Halo took a bit of quite a substantial hit during COVID, as you can imagine. All of our customers were office blocks and workplaces, which more or less shut for 18 months. So unfortunately, we had to let quite a few of the staff go. It's still in operation. We have 7 drivers on the road, and we will start to build that back up. But it'll be early next year again before you give it a real drive. At the moment, it's just servicing and holding on to customers that are still able and willing to keep the honesty boxes and vending machines in their workplaces.
You should chat to Ollie Kavanagh from Strikepay. He has a business that, from my interpretation of how would help you, would be save you time having to go and collect all the cash and potentially save you some headcount. And I know that like getting rid of people is not the easiest thing in the world, or not, that might not be what you want to do, but it's essentially he helps those who are in the delivery driving business or waiters carry around the card that people can tip directly to the person. So if you're delivering Domino's to someone's house, there can be a card that's delivered with it, and they can scan and then tip the actual delivery person. If you're a person who's in the bathroom at a nightclub, instead of handing them loads of cash, they can carry one of these cards that people can tip. If you're an honesty box owner, there can be a machine or a thing, put next to the honesty box, or like a, one of those carry around cards that you can insert your card into and type your pin into. There can be one of those put on the wall that says tap here to donate €1.20, and instead of having to go every day and collect it every week and collect the cash, they just tap, and you can log into your bank and see all the people that are donating money, essentially saving you having to go around the country or sending people around the country. Definitely worth connecting with them.
Interesting. I actually I wrote the plan for an app that I was going to implement using QR codes. So there was a QR code to be put on each of the honesty boxes, and there was two different logins, a login from the driver and a login from the consumer. Obviously, the consumer could only log in through one, but the driver would have a specified app that would allow them the back end of the system, and you would be able to donate through it. It would give me full transparency and traceability from where the driver is, the time in which they were arriving to each site, and all the data that was needed to get the KPIs correct and everything from that side. But we didn't implement it due to the cost factor. Now, I was looking at that back in 15, I think it was.
Okay.
So it was at the early days of the QR code, and QR codes didn't really take off as quickly as they were expected to. They're far more usable now. But in the early days, I thought they were going to just lift, and it was going to be the new way information was transferred. But it took a couple of years before anyone really used them properly. Now they're everywhere, and COVID is actually after amplifying that growth. Because the COVID passport and the lack of paper, and you can't be using the same thing. You see, I was in Forteventura there 2 weeks ago, and nowhere had menus. It was just a QR code on the table, and you have your either your drinks menu or your food menu, and you just scan it and put your order in through that. Amazing. Why that didn't catch on a couple of years ago, I don't know, but it has now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I was definitely shocked. I remember being in college at the time going, oh yeah, this is going to take off, but it never did. There's a guy called James Dennis. I can't remember the name of the company. He's a CTO at it. And he says for this previous job, he helped with the expansion of Meteor and a couple of other companies in that space in Ireland. He used to go to Japan a lot. And do you know that famous crossroad in Japan that a lot of people take pictures at, the busiest crossroad in the world, or intersection? He says in that particular city, when he visited, you would basically be able to see what life was like in the future. The only unknown was that there would be 80 technology things that you'd never heard of or seen, but only one or two of them would make it to the Western world. So it's to be able to spot those one or two that would make it. And he was talking about some of this stuff that we're only seeing now, they saw 25 years ago, which is, I now have a massive desire to go and visit Japan, because I'd love to see what's out there. There was my dad's old friend was in the house the other day, and he had this device, like a Bluetooth thing you put in your ear. And I was like, that's just a Bluetooth speaker that you put in your ear to talk to. And he says, no, it's Japanese workers would turn it on, and it's a 30-minute timer that sends a loud noise down your ear to wake you up when you're traveling to work, so they could get an extra half an hour of sleep. And there's a button you can press to snooze. So they'd put this on when they're going on the bus to get an extra half hour of sleep. And it's like, some of the devices are crazy. I
wouldn't be into that now, but
no, I wouldn't wear that. I'd probably look for a new job if I was struggling to sleep that much. Anyway, I went on a tangent there, I did. But now, today, you're the co-founder and CEO of Greenheart CBD. So rather than me give the 30-second commercial, you'll do a much better job since you're the co-founder. So the mic is yours.
Super. Okay, Greenheart CBD was founded by myself, Mark Canavan, and Paul Walsh. We founded Greenheart in 2019. It's not that old, not yet. So the idea was to bring the finest handmade CBD products to the Irish market. That's where we started. We decided that we were going to try implement some technologies into this space. So when we started looking at the business and creating the business model, we saw some regulation coming into the space as it was new, and the whole relationship with cannabis, although it's not cannabis and it doesn't contain THC, which is one of the cannabinoids that sits alongside CBD, but that's the cannabinoid that actually gets you high or stoned. CBD has health benefits solely, and there's no side effects to it whatsoever from a psychoactive perspective or otherwise. So we went out and we were looking at different extraction methods because we wanted to have a fully transparent company. We wanted to bring the product from seed to shelf. So we went out and we found this specified extraction method called homogenized cold press. Cold press allows us to stay as a food supplement, and it's almost like juicing but with an oil. So we were looking into cold press. There was a few different cold press products on the market, and then we found this extraction technology that was homogenized. Now, the homogenization is a very important part of our company. It's basically it's like modification done to a cold press machine, and it's additional pressure added in different elements and stages of the process. And what it does is, with that high level of pressure, and then the release cativation occurs, and it actually breaks and liaises the cells. So it breaks them down so that they're gone from a particle size down to a minuscule size, and it's easier ingested by the body. So when we produce a 5% CBD oil, that could have the impact of a 15% CBD oil created through some of the other extraction technologies like CO2 or ethanol, which leave it in quite a large molecule size. So a lot of that is actually wasted by the body. It's not absorbed at all. Now, our product is also so effective due to the fact that it's a whole plant extract and it's fully natural. So we use a raw seed and the hemp plant then to extract. It's put through our extraction machinery. We get our oil. It's not refined or adjusted in any way. The only thing that we do after that process is filter and bottle our product. So it's fully natural right through. We then, while we were growing, we started growing in 2019 down in Wicklow with a family called the Hanbridges. Ed had been involved in the hemp cultivation space. They're long-term family farmers, but Ed got involved in cultivation of hemp in 2015. Did a couple of years where they made no money. There was no infrastructure for the whole space. Like, this hemp is a hugely utilizable plant, very good for the environment and sustainable. There's 50,000 uses for the hemp plant, and food is, there's about like 40 different products that can be produced as a food supplement through this. We started growing. We did 10 acres. We'd never farmed before. Two Dublin boys coming down. Everybody was like, these guys are not going to make it. But we got our hands dirty. We got in. We did what was supposed to be done. We picked a nice patch of land. Hadn't been ploughed in 30 years. It was the high nutrition count in the soil. We started doing research into areas that we had never even dreamt that we would be looking at before. So the growth started really well. We went in just at the right time. We were forecasting the weather. We were looking to see what the optimum the sow rate was. So you can obviously different depending on how deep you want to go with the seed. We did massive research into this space. So things were going really well. And then Paul got contacted by one of his contacts through LinkedIn, Dr. Sean Paisley. Sean has a Canadian company called Zenadrone now. It was Zenatech at the time. And he was running a drone program, and he was working with crops over in Canada. This was an outdoor program, and unfortunately that year they were hit with severe hailstones, and a lot of the crops in which he was working with were wiped out. So he said, well, you guys are working in a different climate. Would you mind if I came over and did my beta test with you? So he came over, we partnered with the company, and this drone technology started out as a method of monitoring, scanning crops out in the outdoor environment. So we grew our first crop. We took daily scans with multispectrum imaging, which allowed us to identify any problems that were coming into the crop. And later then, as we started to develop this further, we started to work towards identifying different aspects and weeds and why things were coming into the crop, and also the male plant, because when you grow hemp, the male plant is only grown to pollinate the female. The female is actually the one that produces the flower, and after pollination will then produce a seed. In Ireland, we grow primarily for the seed and the stalk. We're not allowed to grow specifically for flower. It's just not allowed through regulation at the moment. So what we did was we started to hash out more and more ideas with Sean, and we were the only ones running the beta test for him. So we did the full year of getting all the scans, very interesting scans and information were given back. The data collection was huge for us, and as a result, we actually did 5 times the average yield from that patch of land. So a farmer will estimate to grow to produce 200 kilos of dried flower from an acre site. That year we did just over a ton per acre. So with this new technology, we said, well, this isn't just method of scanning and getting a bit of information back. This gave us the optimum time to grow, optimum time to harvest. It allowed us to see exactly where different problems were occurring, so we could fix that before it became a big problem or contaminated the rest of the crop. So from there, we said, well, what else can we do with this drone? So then with the identification of male and weeds throughout the crop, we said, well, why don't we create an arm or a robotic mechanism that can eradicate these, because they're not needed. So they're only suffocating the rest of the plants, which is the goal that we're trying to grow here. So this year we developed our drone that has multiple attachments, one of which is a robotic arm that comes down and actually blitzes both weeds and male plants, anything unwanted within the field. It identifies this itself. So it goes out, scans. Once the scans are done, on the first round, we can pinpoint and say, this particular color or heat level is not needed within the field. So when it goes out, it scans, then it comes back, picks up the new attachment, out it goes, and eradicates that particular plant. This is massive for the industry. So it's called feminization, outdoor feminization. A lot of cannabis or hemp growers over in the States will grow with feminized seeds, meaning that they will have a 90% rate of, or 90% chance of getting a female plant against a male. When we grow with just regular seed, it's a different method of growing and it's scattered. So we look for a canopy top. So it's just, they're very close together. And that can often reduce airflow, and it's reducing airflow with 50% of the plants not needed and being waste. So if we can pull that 50% out, not only does it mean that the management of the harvest is much easier because you don't have these weeds and unwanted plants throughout it, it also means that your female is going to produce a higher rate because she has the air and the light source that's needed. So that then brought us on to our next level. So we said, right, well, so now we've got the IP technology to create these superior products. We've now got a data chain, so we can now link our consumer with the farmer and show the consumer the scans of our crop. And everything's about farm to fork now. It's all about traceability. Where does your product come from? So we're at the moment, we're in the process of putting QR codes, finally coming into use, on each of our products, which the customer can scan, and it will link back and show you the crop as it came through its growth cycle, the travel cycle that it went on, but also tell you the story of the farmer that grew the crop. So it gives you the full chain, gives you a full story of that product that you've purchased. So then from there, we started to develop out other products. We won numerous awards on this journey. We were in the top 30 entrepreneurs under 30 years of age. We were accredited one of the businesses of the year through the All Ireland Business Foundation. Paul was accredited as a thought leader in innovation, technology and sustainability. Third place as product of the year in Cannabis Magazine. We got funding round of the year, partnership of the year. Numerous awards, which is absolutely fantastic to get the recognition for what we were doing. But we were looking at different things. So we're bringing out new product lines now. We have a wellness range coming out, which will include topical balms and oils. And we've got an edible range coming out. This is a really interesting end of things. So we went down the confectionery route first. So it should be December or January when we have this product on the shelves. But we've got a CBD infused popcorn coming out. So we've partnered with the Irish Popcorn Company down in Wicklow, and we've got 2 different flavors coming out. It's a turmeric, black pepper, and lemon, and a sweet and salty, aiming at different markets. Sweet and salty is more your college kind of younger market, whereas the turmeric, black pepper, and lemon would be your health conscious middle-aged person. Absolutely gorgeous in flavor and really interesting, lovely packaging. So I'll be looking forward to showing you them. But another product that we're bringing out in that range is a CBD infused protein powder, which would be a topping for cereals or smoothies. And the way in which we do this is we have through our extraction technology, as it's a natural process, we extract our oil and we're left with a cake-like substance, which is plant matter and seed, which is high in protein. So it's about 36 to 40% protein. So what we do is we blend this product, which is a byproduct, and blend it up, and it's an edible, usable product. So it tastes lovely. It's full of nutrition, has CBD included in it, and it's fully natural. So we're now bringing that out, and that's going to be brought out in the 3 different seed blends that we use. So we have a rapeseed blend, a flaxseed blend, and a hemp seed blend, and they'll be on the market in Q1 of next year as well. But that allows our facility to be zero waste. So we use everything that comes in right through the chain to come out. There's no waste that comes out of our facility that's for landfill. There's some recyclable stuff from packaging, but that's all recycled and brought back through. So that's where we are with our product ranges. That's good. That would be expanded out further. But then we went down the road of trying to collect the data then from the next stage. So as we have our IP technology in our extraction, we've got our lovely modular system set up. We funded this ourselves. It was totally bootstrapped, just myself and Paul, 2 guys in our 20s. Obviously, you haven't created that much savings at that point. I'd already bought a house, and like funds were limited when it came to building a business, particularly with this sort of potential. So we went and we said, well, what way can we kind of bring this to the next level? Things were getting tight, and when you start bringing products to market and doing a lot of research and development, like there's a lot of cost and time involved. So we said, well, why don't we modularize the system that we have and bring that to a global market? So allow other farmers to get into the space and to do what we're doing in a partnership model, which will also allow us to do further research in using strains and crops that we wouldn't be able to use here due to regulation, and to grow in different climates and to collect that data. Again, data being number one, that's where value really is held. So we said, okay, well, why don't we look at a model like that? COVID hit, and we had so much stock, so little time. Retail closed, where we were to sell our stock. We needed funds. So we tried to go out to the market then with this through a commodity-based token model. So we tried to release a cryptocurrency called the punt. We were going to bring the punt back, our old Irish currency, and it was going to be backed by our CBD oil. This idea was fantastic. We really thought that we had found a gap in the whole crypto market using a commodity behind it, because crypto is very speculative kind of space. Huge revenues can be produced through it and great models, but it's new. There's a lot of scammy kind of games being played within it, and there's not a lot of true projects don't really like this route. So we tried it and failed. So we went out. We had $4 million worth of stock. We put that up against this token that we were to bring to market, but it just didn't take. We didn't have the name. We didn't go through the right platforms. We were new to the space. Nobody understood what we were trying to do. We were trying to disrupt a market that was disrupting, and we were too traditional for what was happening. But through it, we did gain reputation, and everybody saw that these guys are going to keep going, and we're going to find a way to make this work. So then we looked at it from a different angle, and we expanded out the team through this. We brought in a CEO, Shane Brett, who's CEO of that particular project, still involved with us now, and took in CSO Shane McQuillan. Shane McQuillan had been involved in a lot of blockchain projects and is very knowledgeable in the space. He said, why don't we go down a slightly different route with it and use the modular system to help the underserved, to bring farmers out of poverty and to bring the research in, using the idea that we already had, but to use that as a funding model and get the funding in through that model. So we did, and we went out and we were backed by multiple institutional investors. And within, I think it was from the time of our the token went on sale, I think it was a 36-hour period, we had raised $5.3 million.
Wow.
And we had now got our Greenheart CBD token up and live on an exchange. It's trading now on PancakeSwap, and it's gone from strength to strength. We've built out the platform. We've got the roadmap in place. We've started to fulfill the roadmap. We're getting the community built. We've a Telegram group of about, I think it's just shy of 8,000 people. There's about 7,500 token holders currently. We're now speaking at the Web Summit in Lisbon, in Portugal next month, all about circular economies and how to drive the whole token model. And we'll be really pushing it out through that, which I think will gain great traction. Today, we've actually just got a confirmation through Paragon, which is one of the UFC sponsorship agencies, that we're sponsoring one of the events in Dublin this year on the 5th of November. Greenheart CBD are going to be primary sponsor, and we have, I think it's 4 UFC fighters that are going to be taking on our product to sponsorship. So we've gone from strength to strength to strength, and it's only the start of the journey. The snowball it's just left the top of the mountain and it's about to grow further.
Absolutely, Mark. I love what you're doing from the moment you started talking about like how you started the business to then bringing over the Canadian with the drone technology. That was music to my ears, because I just love when people adapt and change and recognize what they can do, and then and improve it, and then take out the males. And then you were talking about the punt and how you adapted that. Hats off to you. I love what you're doing. I've got a couple of questions around your go-to-market approach, because you've referenced the UFC. I also saw recently on Instagram, Conor Ryan was endorsing your product, or was doing a paid ad. And then you've also referenced the Web Summit. I'm going to call that an expo. You can call it a gathering of whatever you want to.
It is an expo.
80,000 people at one. Sponsorship of Opinion Matters by Adrian and Jeremy as well. So what's your focus if you look over the next 18 to 24 months, your go-to-market approach? I know you're touching on the influencer side of things. You're touching on sponsorship, maybe paid media as well. Partners, I'm assuming you have loads of partners, and then expos as well. Kind of give me a broad range of how you plan to get the product out there.
Okay. Right. Well, from a product perspective, so we look at the company from 2 different angles. We've got a product-based business and we've a technology-based business. The technology being the data collection points through the drone and the blockchain elements. That will be pushed out through influencers and at the likes of the Web Summit, where we do talks on our model and how we've driven it to where it is. And we've also got a mobile application being developed, which will have different staking pools. We've augmented reality pools, which is almost gamifying our token model. That's one element. That Paul is the driver of that side of the business, and he's the technology expert. He's an amazing vision, and he's the one that kind of pieces this all together. He's like a racehorse that I'm trying to hold on to and manage.
It's a great analogy.
I manage, and I'm the CEO of Greenheart CBD as a parent company. So I'm in charge of the product-based business. We have been looking for distribution now from the time we got our product off the ground. We started to drive through influencers and through social media. As I said, we were bootstrapped. We funded this all ourselves in the beginning. So we had very little funding behind us. It was trying to pay the mortgage each month was a bit of a struggle when everything was just being pumped back in. And it was just all self-promotion through social media. So then we started to gain a bit of traction, and we, believe it or not, we actually do a huge amount of work with the autistic community. So we have this particular super mum, as I like to call her, Rona Cullinan. She has three special needs kids, one of which is Asperger's, one is Down syndrome, and one is autism. Joshua, her middle child, is severe autism, and he was non-verbal at a point. He did very poor communication skills. It was terrible. She actually documented the whole thing because in the beginning she was unsure as to what it was that was different about Joshua against other kids in his class, and the development and the stages in which he was going through. Now, she started to use a CBD oil called Charlotte's Web. It's based out of Colombia, but with the extraction methods, the regulation in Europe, which is known as the novel foods, that's why we went down the particular extraction methods that we did. So we're classified as a food supplement. But because of that, they had to pull from Europe. So they pulled, and unfortunate for mothers like Rona and other families around the country that were reliant on this product, they couldn't access it anymore. Now, she found Greenheart and said, well, look, I've tried 10 or 15 different CBD companies and nothing's working. And then we started talking to her and said, well, ours is different. Like, give it a shot and see what you can do. Now, as I explained, we have three different seed blends, and there's reasons behind each of those. And we do a lot of research into the carrier oils being the seed that's used with the hemp extraction. So we had our hemp seed blend, which is hemp, and it being a hemp product, it just keeps it all under the one umbrella, under the same plant. But we brought out a flaxseed blend, and the reason for that was because the high omega count in it and the use of omegas in brain development. So we said, like, if you're trying to work a cognitive issue with CBD and autism, well, I think this would be a good carrier oil for it. So she started to use it with Joshua, and the results were phenomenal. If you can go on to Instagram and check out Molly and Joshua, that's her page that she has, and she's documented the whole journey on there. So she started to see amazing results. It was phenomenal. Over a couple of weeks, Joshua started to speak again. He was saying words that he'd never said before. Like, and he was a couple of years old at this stage. Like, he had developed verbally, and then it was like he closed in on himself. And then he started to his affection levels started to increase with his brothers and sisters, with her and her husband. And she was just ringing us saying, this is phenomenal. Like, what? I can't believe that this is happening. I thought what was good was happening with Charlotte's Web, but this is another level. So she became a huge advocate for us and pushed us out through the community. Because as you can imagine, if you're in the autistic community, everybody's very close because they're all going through similar journeys together and they're trying to help each other in the same ways. As with any ailment, people generally kind of associate closely to see how you can help one another. So thanks to Rona, it was a huge benefit for us in the beginning because it was from a self-fulfillment perspective, it's great to help people and it makes you feel good. It took the pressures of us just trying to drive from a profitability perspective, and then we were making real change. We knew CBD was great. It's a food supplement. I've seen people use it for physical ailments and that sort of thing, but to see it changing lives and making mothers' lives that bit easier was just out of this world. Yeah. So then in turn, she was then telling everybody her story, which was driving our sales and which had a benefit for everybody. And so that's where our whole influencer aspect started. So this was the first real driving force we had from that perspective. So we drove through that angle for quite a while, and then we started to advertise with the likes of goss.ie. We got some adverts in the Irish Times, the Irish Independent, Cannabis Magazine, which is a cannabis and CBD based media company over in the UK. And so through some paid outlets, as we started to get some funds generated. Then COVID hit, we had retail shut. Every time we pushed on it, we got a couple of stores on board, and the stores were closed for a period of time. It was a never-ending battle that we had there. But then we got listed with Unifar. So Unifar which was a bit of a struggle that we had for quite a while. We were trying. Unifar are one of the biggest distributors into pharmacy across the country. So we got listed with them in July of this year. So something we're very proud of. So we've started to roll that out now. So if you're looking for any CBD product, you can get it on our website, which is greenheartcbd.ie, but you can also get it in any pharmacy. And it may not be stocked on the shelf, but if it isn't, you can request it. And Unifar have superior service, which if you request a product in the morning, it'll be there by 3 o'clock that evening. Wow. So even if it's not on the shelf, they'll have it for you within that day. So this is driven sales now from a retail perspective. That's our main route to market for that product line. Then we've got our edible line. So we're partnered with the Irish Popcorn Company. We're going to go through different distribution channels through that. That's a totally different area. So that's the FMCG market. So we'd be looking at the likes of forecourts, garages, convenience stores, supermarkets, totally different retail segment. So they'll be going, we're in talks with a couple of different distributors. And because we've got a product that is new and not on the market here in Europe yet, we've got a gap. So we've got a good product. The packaging is outstanding, and we really feel it's going to drive off the shelves. I don't see an issue there. Then our cosmetics line will be driven through the Unifar side of things again. So our route to market is, to answer the question simply, is both through our online elements. The marketing aspects are through paid media and through the influencers. And then for our FMCG side of things, it's through the other elements of retail, such as forecourts and supermarkets.
I'm going to leave links below to Molly's Instagram page and your website if anyone's interested in either of them, wherever they're listening or watching this. One or two more questions for you, Mark. Before I do that, you should check and connect with Niall Phelan from the Naked Collective. He launched the Naked Collective December 2019, and he's collabed with the likes of Wizz Air. He was in the goodie bag for the Academy Awards. He's in 1,500 stores across Canada, a couple thousand stores across the US, launched Startling and Spar in Ireland, and all this is within the last 18 months. The companies, they have more demand than supply in the US at the moment. So definitely worth connecting with as a way of like connecting the dots 100%. Or linking up. I'm more than happy to give you an introduction to Niall as well. He's a great guy. His business partner, Catherine Butler, who's the other co-founder, actually lives in Ratoath. Very small world.
There you go. Mead's a great county, isn't it?
It's a great county, yeah. Is there a commonly held belief about your industry or role that you disagree with? And if so, what is it?
Belief or role? It's more of a stigma. I think there's a lot of education needed for the space. I think that everybody that looks at CBD, they immediately think cannabis, and that's not the case. People just need to be educated in it to understand that this is not a drug, it's a food supplement. There are no psychoactive or side effects from it. And that is turning, and people are learning and getting more educated in it. But it is still, unfortunately, a stigma that sits around the product. But as we get to tell more and more stories of the success stories of our product, we actually brought out, which I'll give you a link for as well, a mini series that we've just started, and it's called Greener Hearts, and it's about some of our long-term customers and the journey that they went on and the benefits that they've felt from it. Unfortunately, because it's a food supplement and the lack of research that's gone into the space, we have to be very careful in how we explain the benefits, because we can't make any claims around our product. Now, a customer can tell people how they have felt after taking it, but we can't relate our product to anxiety, to pain, to any of the ailments in which it may help and has been seen to help a lot of people. So it's difficult to market from that perspective. But again, education and evolution are allowing it to happen.
so I can give it all the credit in the world, but you can't say much.
Yeah, I can just say it's great.
Final question for you, Mark. What's your personal definition of success?
Self-fulfillment. It's making a change. It's helping others. it's bringing along an ethos and a thought process that everybody can join along with, and bringing a team together to drive for better good. I don't think money is the end of it. Money always helps, but it's not the be all and end all. It's just one factor, which isn't number one when building a business, or just trying to be successful in other elements. Like, often business is one way people determine success, but I think if you're helping someone, that's more important than driving profits.
I love it. We'll leave it there. Mark Canavan, I've had a true pleasure in spending the last hour chatting with you. I'll leave links to everything we mentioned below, from the Instagram pages to your website to your product, your shop, the video series as well. Anything that you want to send me on, I'll leave links to wherever you're listening or watching this. But for today, thanks for being my guest, and I wish you continued success.
You too, and it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.